Hello and welcome to Watch Complications. I am Brian, and today what I have for you is a how-to video. So what went down was this. I sometimes for the YouTube channel or the blog I'll get contacted by watch companies or strap companies to discuss maybe reviewing a product. Sometimes there's offers out there like on Facebook groups for watch micro brands. An owner might say, I'm looking for people who want to review the watch or ask for suggestions, that sort of thing. And so sometimes review things come my way. Well, so I intended for this video to initially be, it was going to be a review. However, I got sent a watch for a review, and it is the Vario Silver Empire. You may have seen this before. It's been around for a little while. It's not one of the new watches in the line. It's been around for a little bit, but I still thought it'd be interesting to take a look at it for myself as well. Vario is a fairly young company. It's based in Singapore, owned and operated by a wonderfully nice fellow named Ivan. So he's pretty active in like social media, Facebook, stuff like that, with promoting his brand and talking to people. So anyway, he sends me this watch for review, and it's a watch that's traveling through United States from reviewer to reviewer to get looked at. And it arrived to me without the original box and wrapped in tissue paper, and the watch doesn't work. I'll show you in the next little section here what's wrong with it up close, but it's not working. So I thought, why not take advantage of the opportunity and make a video out of it, and then I'll do the review. So this is a how-to video on how to replace a watch movement, and then the next video, once I have the working movement in it, I'll give a full review of this watch as promised to Ivan. So we have a mechanical watch that is worth a few $100s, and the movement breaks. What do? You can either get it repaired, which one is the hassle, the shipping, and the cost associated with that. If you could take it to a local watchmaker and have them take the movement apart, figure out what's wrong with it, put it back there. But in this context, we're dealing with what we have are movements that are really, in most cases, cheaper to just replace than to fix. And so these are movements that are in the, let's say, the $20 to $50, $60 price range. So movements in that range, we're talking, there's a lot of Chinese movements, Japanese movements, that sort of thing. So that's what we're talking about here. Is I've got a watch, it's a mechanical watch, I want to keep it, I want to do the review on it, the movement in it. This isn't something you're going to pay the cost to ship halfway across the world to one way and then the other way back, take the time to repair the movement. It'd be cheaper just to send a replacement watch at the end of the day in some circumstances, depending on what exact watch we're talking about. We have a watch, we like wearing it, happens to be broken, it's not cost effective to get the movement itself repaired, do the shipping and send it back. What could we do? Well, you could just replace it yourself, and I am going to show you how to do that. This is just something that might be fun to try sometime, or doing an experiment, or just learning and practicing. So I'll go through the steps of taking the case back off, got to take the stem out, take the hands and the dial off, and then put it all back together. So it's a fairly straightforward process, compared to like taking a movement apart and putting it back together. That's not what we're talking about, but just a swap of the movement. But that also means taking hands off, taking dial off, and all that wonderful stuff. So this is meant to show you how to do that if you were so inclined to do this on your own. I'll talk all the details about the watch, how it's behaving in its broken state, what might possibly be wrong with it, and then replacing it, and get us ready for that review of the Vario Silver Empire. So let's get on to swapping the movement.
Okay, so you can see the watch isn't running. It's pushed all the way in. Balance wheel, escapement not moving. Wind it. You can see that the mainspring barrel is moving. It feels a little bit looser than it normally would. By looser, I mean this is not feeling like there's much tension in the mainspring, if it is actually winding or not. But if you see, I pull this out to the setting. When I move back and forth, the second hand jumps back and forth a little bit. And you can see as I'm moving it, now it's running a little bit. I push it in. It's going to run for a few seconds and stop. There, it stopped. I should eventually feel enough tension on the mainspring that it knows that it's time to stop. But I don't think I'm going to get to that point. But this is the way it arrived to me. Let me pull it out from this side. You can see, you can get it to move there a little bit and then move forward, and it will kick into action. Push it in. Grinds to a halt.
Okay, so here we have the Vario Silver Empire, and I am going to take you through the steps of replacing the movement. This again is if you didn't want to replace or fix a specific problem on the movement, but in some cases it's cheaper just to remove the entire movement and replace it with a new one. If you don't want to spend the time fiddling with it, this is in that sort of price point. So this is a Japanese Miyota 6T33 yellow, and I got the same movement to replace it. This also comes in a silver, and I wanted this to maintain its original look for the review. Again, Ivan, who is the owner and operator of Vario watches, was kind enough to give this to me for review. It wasn't working, said I could keep it if I could fix it, and so I chose to fix it, and I want to put the same movement in it that came with it. But however, he did tell me that some of these are out there with the silver color or white color, whichever you want to call it, and then some of them have the yellow. So this is the yellow 6T33 Miyota movement from Japan. First thing we're going to do is take the case back off. So I've got my trusty case tool here. We'll take it apart, see what this looks like on the inside. Gets a little bit easier to turn as you get it through a few rotations. The thing here, as always, is just take your time, be patient, don't force it, and it will eventually come out enough that you can use your fingers to help turn it. And there we go. And we'll take the case back off here. I have not looked inside of one of these, so there's a movement holder in here to sort of bridge the gap between the size of the movement and the case, which is 40 millimeter or something like that. I'll say more about that in the review. I can't remember right now off the top of my head. But okay, so first step was the case back. Next thing we've got to do is take the stem off the watch so that I can take the movement out, take the hands and the dial off of the movement. And this, again, is a Miyota 6T33. You can see here it says Japan, 17 jewels. You can see 6T33 right here, Miyota. I really like Miyota movements. They're pretty nice. I like Japanese movements. The way we will remove the stem on this is to use this little press right here. And so we'll pull the stem out to the setting position and then press on that and give the stem a tug, and should pop right out. I'm going to use a toothpick to do this particular task, and should pop out like that. And now we have the stem removed from the movement. So now I'm going to remove the movement and dial and everything from the case, and I'll give it a little help here just to get it started on the different sides, just using actually my hand removal tool. Now when you remove one of these, the movement holder might come out separate from the movement. That's okay. Sometimes they might be attached. There's no screws attached in this one, looks like. So no screw is holding the movement holder to the movement and the dial, and that's okay, it's normal. So there's the movement holder. So I'll set that to the side. And now I should be able to turn this over. This is the broken movement, and out pops the dial. There's the case. It's really a nice looking case. I like the design on this. Well done, Ivan. Okay, we'll give that a cleaning as well before we put it back in. Now I have the movement and the dial. I'm not super concerned about the back of this right now because remember, this one's broken. I'm not exactly sure what's wrong with it. A little earlier I described the behavior of the movement in its sort of broken state. A couple of possibilities. I've seen that sort of behavior in some other hand wound movements before. It could be that one of the previous people that had the watch for review overwound it, broke the barrel arbor or something like that. It could be that during shipping, since it wasn't in the box, it was just in some fairly thin tissue paper inside a fairly thin bubble, envelope. If it took a hard enough hit, could be that the pallet fork in the escapement is a little bit out of alignment. It could be one of those two issues. That's where I look first, but I'm not caring about the back of this too much, so I'm just going to set it directly on this instead of like in a movement hold or something. Those hands look amazing in this light. Well done on the hands. And you can see that the dial has this beautiful silver color, Art Deco numerals, and the guilloche in the center. And I do like the logo on this particular micro brand. The hands have taken on a completely different color, by the way, taking it out of the case. That's because the case, I'm not sure, I'll have to look up or I'll ask Ivan. I don't know if this has anti-reflective coating on it. And I know that there aren't any other reviews out there. There are a lot of reviews out there of this particular watch, and it's an older watch. But I don't think any of them have looked at the hands from under the case. Okay, so now I'm going to take the hands off. First thing I'm going to do is I want to protect this beautiful dial. So I'm going to use my dial protector here, and I'm going to slide it underneath of the hands. And I might have to give the hour hand a little bit of help here. So this is one of the hand remover tools. I'm just going to give the hour hand a little lift up here slightly and slide this under there like so. I want to keep this dial in tip-top shape. It's beautiful. So you can see that snaps right there into place. You can see the part number there from this particular dial protector. So I'm going to use my little hand remover tools. Here I typically use two for two reasons. One, if you just use one and you put too much pressure on it quickly, the hand might go flying. And the second is just for keeping everything in tip-top shape, the hand and the pens. So I'm going to slide this between here. I'm going to have to look up and see what sizes these hands are. So there's the second hand. I'm going to get my Rodico here, and I will move this hand off to the side. And then we're going to do the other two. Again, you just want to take your time, be patient. You want to be cautious not to rub too much against the other hands. I'll put a little pressure on one side, a little pressure on the other, a little bit back and forth. Same time, and it should just easily pop off. So we'll set the minute hand aside. And then for the hour hand. I don't have a replacement set of hands for this, so I am taking particular care. Take care. That one popped just a little bit, which is fine. That's, semi-normal. All right, so I picked these up with Rodico. You could use tweezers, but again, I always like working with hands by using Rodico just because it's going to pick things up more quickly and alleviate the potential damage that might come from metal on metal contact. Okay, so we can take that off. Okay, our dial has been protected just fine. Now we have to remove the dial from the movement. This is an interesting dial construction. It looks like there's three different layers. So there's this top layer that has the numerals and markers and the applied logo. Looks like these are all applied, soldered on the back. There's a second layer here that is the same color as the dial. This is what would be in contact with the inside ring on the case around here. And then there's a third layer that is brass, which is what's connected to the movement. Now, to remove this movement from this particular dial, it looks like, is two screws. I've not worked with this movement before, but it looks like there's a screw right here on the side. I haven't even looked at the specification for this yet. And then 180 degrees on the other side should be the other screw. Yeah. So we'll just unscrew both of those, and the dial feet should be loosened enough and the movement will come right off. So we'll do that. I'll do a quarter turn there and then see how loose it is a little bit. Do it again. just a little bit at a time. You can see that's loose right there now. So it should come up just a little bit. You can see how that moves now. I just did a little quarter turn. Then what I'm going to do is go to the other side and do the same thing. You can see. By the way, this is the yellow screwdriver size 80 that I'm using for this particular task if you were to do this yourself. Okay, so I've loosened the screws enough. Now I'm just going to turn this over and the movement should just pop off the back. There we go. Yeah, you can see there's this brass layer with the dial feet on it, and then you got the actual dial base, which is this silver color here, and then there's another layer on top of that that has this stuff applied to it. So there's 3 layers here. Okay, so there is the dial now removed from the movement, and here is the bad movement. And then we have the new movement we're going to swap in for it. This was about $50. You could bulk order in the 40s. If you're buying, one off or, a couple, you might pay in the, the $50 to $60 range for, the cost of the movement and then shipping on top of that sort of thing. So not an extremely expensive movement. You can see this one's actually moving. See the balance wheel and escapement going at it there. And so now I got to take this out, take the stem off of the new movement and swap it back in. Okay, so I put the movement back on the dial in the correct location. Make sure the stem is at 3 o'clock. So I just sat it on there and the dial feet slide into the movement in the appropriate locations. And then I'm going to use the screws on the side to tighten it back up so that this new movement is secured to the dial. So these dial feet screws, a couple of new ones came with the movement, but these unscrew all the way. I'm just going to use the old ones and then save the new ones for, another occasion, another day. So I'm going to unscrew these all the way from both sides and then put those in the movement. So I'm going to take these out. You can see them there. These are crazy tiny dial feet screws. So I'm taking those out of the old movement. I got some, like I said, I got some new ones with the new movement, but I'm going to use the old ones just so I don't have to take them out of the bag. Less steps, less steps. So now I've got to get these into the locations. Again, picking up little screws. Rodico is typically the way to go. I'll just bring it to a little bit of a point, like so, pick up the screw and get it in the location, and then use the screwdriver the rest of the way. You can see the screws here. I'm just going to pick these up with the Rodico. Much easier than tweezers. Get it into the correct location, drop the payload off as it were, and then use the screwdriver the rest of the way. So that's one side. Get it close here. Slowly go at screwing this back into the movement. Whistle while you work. So I'm going to get that one fairly close and tight enough that it won't come out, and then I'll go do the other side, and then I'll come back and tighten them just so that there's equal pressure about on both sides. So let me pick up this. Here, I can put this over here. See how tiny that is? This is size 80 again, the yellow. In terms of the screwdriver set, use the Rodico to drop it off in the hole, and the screwdriver to go the rest of the way. Taking your time and due diligence. I'll get it to where I feel like there's just enough pressure, and then stop. You gotta be careful with these little bitty screws. Certainly something you don't want to over tighten. I'll get a little bit tight and then I'll flip back to the other side, tighten it up a little bit more. To where it's nice and solid. Give it a little tug, doesn't move. Flip it to the other side. Same thing. Give it a little turn. Make sure it's nice and tight. Put that screwdriver under it, see if it lifts any. No lift, tight. There we go. New movement attached to the original dial. All right, so it's time to put the hands back on, and the sizes of the hands. The hour hand on this movement is 1.2 millimeter. The minute hand is 0.7 millimeter, and then the second hand is 0.17 millimeter. So again, 1.2, 0.7, and 0.17 are the hand sizes for this. I will use the appropriate sizes on my hand pusher to attach the first two, the hour and the minute, and then I'll use the flathead for attaching the seconds hand. I've shown this before on some other videos, so I'm not going to get like super up close with it. Process is the same as always. I'm going to use Rodico to pick up the hand. So here's the first hand, the hour hand, which will go in first. I will get it on the dial, again using my toothpick to kind of just get it where it needs to be, close to 12, just so I don't have to move it too much once I get it attached. All right, so I have the hand sitting on there in the appropriate spot. Got my pusher, size 1.2, which is the appropriate one for this hand, and get on there and give it a nice little nudge and make sure it is nice and secure on the movement. It also has enough clearance for the applied markers. In this case, this is only potentially going to interfere with the applied logo. And it looks like it is raised plenty for that. I'm just looking at it up close under my own eye loop right now, which you can't see my face. All right, so I'm going to make sure this turns just fine. I'll give it a test, make sure the hour hand moves and behaves on the dial just fine without getting hung up on anything. All looks well. And then I'm going to set it close to 12. If every once in a while you notice anything on the dial that might not be natural, supposed to be there, then just remove it. All right, so the next step is to put the minute hand on. Again, I've shown you this process before, so I'm going to go through it fairly quickly. I'll get my Rodico. I will set the hand on the dial in the movement. These hands are great, by the way. They have tubes that go all the way down as opposed to just holes, and so it's really easy to get the hands aligned quickly in the locations they need to be on the movement for setting. It's really, really nice. Okay, so I'm going to visually take a look at this and make sure it is as close to 12 and exact as possible. So I'll do that. You can hear the hand pop on, and then now we're set to do the second hand. So you can see these are exactly at 12 o'clock, both of them, which is what you want whenever you're setting the hour and the minute hand. Second hand, I'm not as particularly concerned about on this, but something to think about. Second hands are usually pretty tedious to put on no matter what watch it is. Again, these are nice because they have these nice long tubes on this particular watch and movement. So that's going to sit down in there nicely. Wow, that was easy. That's maybe the easiest second hand I've ever put on a watch. Everything pointing close to home. We'll give this one little tap down. Like so. Now all the hands are attached. And everything's at 12. Cool, huh? And now I just push the stem in to see if it works. And look, this movement works. Yay. I'm going to now just real quickly just take the stem off of this. Oops, dropped it down a little bit there, but that's fine. I took the stem off so I can put it back in the case. And so here's our case, and I want to make sure that it's nice and clean. So I'm going to take some air. I'm going to blow off the dial, blow air out that. I'm going to put the movement down in it, so the stem will be at 3 o'clock. Just drop it down in there like so. Real quick and easy. All right, so now we need to put the movement holder in here. I'm gonna get this close to where it needs to be for the stem. Like so. Get this mostly centered up. There's a notch on this side of the movement holder. Kind of see it. This is to help keep it secure usually. You can see there's a little notch on this side, and there's a notch on the inside of the case. You can kind of see it there. So here's a little notch, and on the movement holder there's the notch that will go into, and so you want to kind of put it in this direction and then push down toward the stem at 3. So that's what we're going to do, and it should slide in there. You don't have to force it. If you find yourself forcing anything with putting a watch together or taking it apart, you're probably doing it wrong. And then we can replace the stem. Whoop, wrong one. Where'd my stem go? There it is. Too many parts on this workbench. So we'll replace the stem. Should push in all the way just fine. Now we have the washer for our water resistance. Get that situated down in there like so. Case back. We're going to give it a good dusting with air. Make sure there's nothing on it. I'm also going to take the Rodico, run it over it, make sure there's no weird debris or anything on it. Give it one more airing, and then put the case back on. Screw this down like so. Do it as far as I can with my hands. Good looking watch. So we'll turn that around, and then I'll get my case tool back out, and I will tighten it up. I'm not particularly concerned about where the indentations are for removing and replacing the case back. These are all over the place on different watches I have. Some people want them, exactly aligned in a certain way, and I really don't care about that too much, but there we go. Now the watch is ready for review. That's how you go about swapping out movements. Steps are pretty straightforward. You gotta remove the case back, remove the stem, take the movement holder out if there is one. There may be screws. Take the hands off, take the dial off, and then just go in the reverse order and put it all back together again. So this is the Vario Silver Empire, and coming up soon will be the review of this watch now that I have a working movement. You're welcome, Ivan. The blue in the hands is coming out fairly well also under the crystal, so that's good. More details on everything about this watch in the review coming up soon. We now have a working Vario Silver Empire that I can review and get that up on the channel. That's what's going to be coming in the near future. So I hope you enjoyed this how-to video on how to replace a movement should you decide you want to do that at some point. This has been another how-to video on watch complications. I'm Brian. Subscribe if you haven't. If you want updates, you need to ring the bell. And check me out on Instagram at watch_complications, and go to the website and look at all the wonderful content I'm putting out there. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you later.